Bienvenidos. Welcome to my Stairwell Teatro. As I shared in the first episode, my interest in this topic started when a friend told me that Pullman Porters used to be called George, something that they found was very disrespectful because this was not their name. Now, if you haven't watched part one of this two-part series, please do so now. Go to my website, irmaherrera.com, and on the homepage, you'll see there's a drop-down menu that says blog. Click there, and the very first entry will be the Pullman Porters blog, and embedded therein is the first episode. Quite a few of you contacted me to share your reaction to this particular episode, and I'm always happy to hear from you. And two viewers, labor lawyers who are friends of mine, in particular mentioned C.L. Dellums, who rose to become the president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters after the founding president, A. Philip Randolph, retired in the late 1960s. I will be telling you more about C.L. Dellums later in this episode. He was the uncle of Congressman and former mayor of Oakland, Ron Dellums. The motto of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, as they organized in the early campaigns, were "Fight or be slaves." And these words had a very deep meaning for them because the Pullman Company was started right after the Civil War, and George Pullman specifically set out to hire slaves to work in the Pullman cars. And he built the Pullman Company by reinforcing the dominance of whites and the subordination of blacks. Pullman was all about servitude, and the black men on board working as porters were there to serve every need and whim of travelers. The porters felt that the treatment they received at the hands of passengers and the Pullman Company was not much different from what they had experienced when they were slaves. Thus their motto, "Fight or be slaves." And fought they did. They were the first union of black workers recognized in the United States. It has been written that for decades during segregation, the one black person most white Americans thought they knew was the Pullman porter. Even if they had never seen the inside of a Pullman car, they had seen Pullman porters in promotional literature, luring passengers to the ultimate luxury experience, to Norman Rockwell paintings. And Pullman porters were used to sell all types of products, from Listerine to music. Unfortunately, their depiction was all too often offensive and racist. The Pullman porters had a grand vision, and it wasn't just about making their jobs better. Their goal was to dismantle the system of white supremacy that was at the heart of the business model at the company that employed them. Their union president, A. Philip Randolph, beautifully set forth their views. Porters had a consciousness that embraced equality in all its forms, and they brought that spirit to the organizations they created and led throughout the country, in small towns in the rural South, as well as the big urban areas where many of them lived. As noted in the first part of this episode, A. Philip Randolph, a remarkable organizer, was hired by the Brotherhood of Pullman Car Porters to help them gain a union contract. And they did, after more than a decade of being in the crosshairs of one of the company's most aggressive in fighting unions and in using illegal union busting activities. Of course, like any movement, it depends on more than just one person, and there were many other people who were very actively involved in making the Brotherhood such a successful organization. And here in Northern California, one of those persons was the labor activist C.L. Dellums. Dellums worked as a porter for 3 years, but was fired for supporting unionization. He was hired on to work by the union as an organizer and was elected vice president and served in that capacity for decades until he became president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters when A. Philip Randolph retired in 1968. In addition to running the Oakland chapter of the Brotherhood, he also headed the local NAACP and oversaw the work of the NAACP in 9 western states. C.L. Dellums served on California's Fair Employment Practices Commission from the time it was established in 1969 for 26 years. Part of that time he was the chairman. Now this commission was established 5 years before the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. That act established the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. In one of the emails I received, my friend Dale shared the following recollections. As a young attorney, I worked for the commission when CL was a member, and it was an incredible honor to have been acquainted with him. Oakland's Amtrak station at Jack London Square is named after C.L. Dellums. The last of the Pullman Porters, Lee Wesley Gibson, died in 2016. I love this picture of Mr. Gibson, and it reminded of the many images I've seen, still and video, of gatherings of retired Pullman Porters. These proud, impeccably dressed storytellers make quite an impression, and they definitely left their mark. I'll leave you with one final anecdote shared by the son of a Pullman porter as part of an oral history project. Porters loved working when Jackie Gleason, the famous comedian and composer, was on board. Now, Gleason was a superstar in his day with a hugely successful career in radio, television, and then the movies. And his work required frequent trips across the country. And Jackie Gleason traveled in style on a Pullman car. And he brought along an entourage of colleagues and friends and his grand piano. Gleason cars were filled with music and good times. And at the end of each trip, each of the porter got a $100 tip from Mr. Gleason. Now back then, that was a very hefty sum of money. But what made traveling with Jackie Gleason even more special was that he set a tone of respect. No one was allowed to call a porter George, and Jackie Gleason learned the first name of each and every porter on board. Thank you so much for watching my Stairwell Teatro episode. I look forward to bringing you more episodes about names in the next few months.